Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate y'all very much. It is a new week. Going to talk some Bills. Going to talk a little bit of Buffalo Sabres, actually, as well today. If you happen to be catching this on the video side, we are live on the video side. Of course, this will be available video on demand at any time as well. I'm joined today by my buddy, a recurring guest, PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective. What's going on, man? How you doing?
It's been a very busy few days. Was on vacation last week when we got word that our offer for a house was accepted. So we're going to be moving soon.
Ooh.
We had Tough Mudder on Saturday, so I'm pretty beat up from that. It was like a 11.5-mile run up in Canada. That sucked. That really did suck. And our foster dog, who we've had for close to a year, had his first meet and greet. So we might be finding his house that he'll be moving on to. So it's been a very busy week.
Beat the shit out of me, man, in terms of being busy and stuff going on. Congrats on the house, man. I didn't know that. So where are you staying to? Are you going to a different area? Where are you staying now? Where are you going to be going to?
So we're getting out of the falls finally. We're moving to Pendleton. So there's Wheatfield right across the street, and we'll be in the Pendleton area.
Nice, real nice. If you guys who happen to be watching this on the video live side anyway don't know, PK is one half of the Buffalo Sports Collective. They have an excellent podcast. They cover the Bills, the Sabres, other Buffalo sports stuff, but they excel. They specialize in covering the Buffalo Bandits. So, I mean, especially if you're a Bandits fan and you have not checked out their show that PK and Phil do, it is an awesome show. Make sure you check out Buffalo Sports Collective. All right, I want to dive right into some stuff. This won't be, I'm not going to say that. I always say it's not going to be a particularly long episode. You know that as well as anybody, and that shit never ends up coming to fruition. And I do got a lot of stuff that I want to get to today. I want to talk some Sean McDermott, a couple takeaways remaining from the Bills week 2, demolition, so to speak, of Miami. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about some things that happened around the league on Sunday to get us set up for week 3 coming up. And then I want to spend a little bit of time at least talking about the Buffalo Sabres. Training camp does open this week. Well, veterans report on Thursday, which, by the way, I'm going to have Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News on. He's going to be on the show Thursday. We're going to have a Buffalo Sabres training camp preview episode then. So make sure you guys check that out. I'm going to tell you where I want to start, PK, today. Rewatch the game. Watch the all-22 film, and I'm looking for specific takeaways. Now, when I watch all-22 film, I'm not smart enough to come on here and educate people. You know a lot of the names. Guys from Cover One like Eric Turner and in Pro Ant, those guys are so good at doing that, breaking down film. Joe Marino is another one. He's just so good at that. I don't really watch the film for that purpose because I just don't think that I'm articulate enough to be able to educate people. What I like doing when I watch the film is I look for big plays, whether they were positive ones for the Bills or whether they were big plays that went against them. And I kind of like looking at the play and trying to figure out, who was the unsung hero on a good play. If James Cook bounces out a touchdown for 49 yards, that means somebody did their job. Someone made a block. The pick 6 with Jamarcus Ingram, pass rush, who got in? How did they get in? Things like that I like to do when I watch the film and then kind of elaborate on some of the big plays of the game. But I actually want to talk about Sean McDermott before any film stuff, before any single play. Let me ask you this. Let's start here. What has been, going into this season anyway, what has been your assessment of Sean McDermott? I mean, he's won a hell of a lot of games, but he's also had some really bad moments, and I kind of feel like he's been a polarizing sports figure for Buffalo Bills fans for years now because you can swing that pendulum any way you kind of want with him, and I don't think you necessarily would be wrong. What's been your opinion on Sean McDermott, at least going into this season?
I thought he's always been a very, very solid head coach for the regular season. He gets the job done. He gets the best out of players coming in that you might not expect them to be. You talk about the Jamarcus Ingrams, like you were just mentioning. You talk about some of the other players, like Daquan Jones. He's kind of come out of nowhere. He had a solid season, a solid career, but coming to Buffalo, he really shined last year. And having Ed Oliver pop next to him, he's had quite a few players come out of nowhere or just be those 1-year signings and then they take their career to the next year. Jordan Phillips, for example, he had a really good run the first year he was here, or the first time, his first tenure with the Buffalo Bills. I've always thought he's a very, very solid coach in the regular season. And I think the way his coaching style has evolved in his time here, he's definitely taken some things from his early years and gotten better with them, with the going forward on fourth downs. He's been one of the more aggressive coaches on fourth downs, and we absolutely love that. He's been a very pass happy head coach. As much as people want to say he wants to establish that run in his time here, he's been a very pass happy head coach. And now that's kind of changed a bit with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. We'll dive into it in a bit, but he comes up short in the playoffs, and it's always the defensive side of the ball and his star players that do not step up when they need to. I think he's a great leader of men. People will go to the ends of the earth to fight for him, but it just seems like when the biggest moment comes up, he comes up short in those times, and it's mostly the defensive side of the ball that comes up short.
Extremely fair. And no matter what the Bills do during this season and the regular season to change that perception, the Bills are going to simply have to have more success in the playoffs. It's as simple as that. I brought up watching all 22 film a few minutes ago, kind of for a reason, because when my takeaway from watching this game is forget about any one play. I just think, and it seems like every time the Bills play the Dolphins, yes, it's Josh Allen completely owning the Dolphins. We know that. Josh Allen didn't have a great game statistically, so to speak, on Thursday because he didn't need to. But the other common denominator with the Buffalo dominance of the Miami Dolphins is, Mike McDaniel is the trendy guy. He's the guy who wears the joggers that are pulled up halfway up his leg, the trendy guy, the swaggy guy, the quirky dude who says some off-the-wall things, the fun guy that the media seems to like. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Sean McDermott is coaching circles around Mike McDaniel when they play the Miami Dolphins. I go back to the first drive of the game for the Bills. They get an interception actually on the first defensive series of the game. And then it's 4th and 3. I've talked about this on the show throughout the last couple of days. Well, let's bring it up again because I think it's important. 4th and 3 from the 17. And my mindset was you produce a turnover on the road, first defensive series of the game. Let's make sure that we get on the scoreboard. Let's make Miami pay for their mistake, for their sins. And I was like, take the field goal, take the points. It's 4th and 3. If it's 4th and 1, different story. 4th and 3, let's take the points. The Bills call a timeout, and they go for it. Aggressive call, a great dial-up by Joe Brady to get James Cook one-on-one with David Long Jr. Mismatch, touchdown. It wasn't just the fact that the Bills scored and that they went up 7-0. I feel like that call was the head coach saying, I got confidence in my quarterback. I got confidence in my offense. I got confidence in my football team. And I think for the rest of that game, it completely resonated with the Bills. And conversely, as usual, it seems when the Bills play the Dolphins, I feel like there was a lack of urgency, a lack of confidence, a lack of energy on the Miami sideline with their head coach. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that call, besides being successful in getting 7 points instead of 3, I think it just set the tone that we're the better football team. I'm confident in my guys, and we're going to play with a lot of energy and confidence in this game. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Those are the type of moments that I'm talking about where a normal fan that doesn't dive into it might think, hey, this is the Sean McDermott type of, he's not going to go for this kind of thing. That's the type of coach he has been the last, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. He knows what type of rivalry this has become and the what everybody behind the scenes says, what all the content creators say, what all the fans say, that, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills own the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins are the little brothers. And I think Sean McDermott kind of takes a bit of that and goes, okay, it's 4th and 3. We've owned the Miami Dolphins nonstop. Let's start this. We've already got the pick. Let's just pile it on from the beginning and let them know, like, hey, we saw the reports. Miami's the favorite to win this. We saw the reports. The Jets are, but the Bills are still here, and this is still our division until somebody shuts us up. So I think that was a statement move from him in the very early part of the game, just saying, hey, we're here to play. We're still the older brother. You still got to try to catch up to us. It's still not going to happen. And I think his players saw that confidence that he ensued in him or in them, and just went, hey, we're down Terrell Bernard, no big deal. We're down Taron Johnson, no big deal. We're down Matt Milano, no big deal. We can get this done. And they completely shut down. I mean, besides Achane, who kind of went nuts every once in a while, and I don't know why they kind of held off on just giving them the ball over and over and over, even though he was still in the game with like 5 minutes to go. But I think his decision to go for it on 4th and 3rd, and it was a great play call by Joe Brady, like you mentioned, instilled more and more confidence in them. Like, hey, even though we just lost Bernard, it's no big deal. Actually, I don't think they lost Bernard at that point.
They lost in the next series.
Yeah, it's no big deal whatsoever that we're still the top dog here, and we're going to go out and prove it Thursday night with everybody watching.
You know what you were talking about earlier when you said that players will go through the wall for him, they'll go to war for him, whatever terminology you want to use. I believe that, and I think he rewards them with those type of decisions. Conversely, I don't see that with the Miami Dolphins. I didn't see it Thursday. I didn't see it last year. There was a lot of talk that bringing in guys like Calais Campbell and Jordan Poyer, and that was going to change the culture, change the mindset of the Miami Dolphins. And I remember back last year's regular season finale, and Miami was up at halftime. And if you watch the HBO in-season Hard Knocks, it didn't feel like it in that Miami locker room. It was almost like they were waiting for what's going to happen. I kind of felt like I saw the same thing. There's 3 minutes or so left before the half, and Miami's trying to take all the time off the clock, and they got so conservative that they kind of played themselves out of having an opportunity to score a touchdown. That's the head coach getting artsy-fartsy. I said that a couple of days ago. And then one other thing, too, like the difference between these teams, PK, is Kirk Herbstreit, I thought the broadcast, quite frankly, on Thursday was not very good. Just a lot of things said that to me didn't make a lot of sense. I didn't agree with. But one thing Kirk Herbstreit kind of alluded to, at least, that I agree with completely, was the game's over. There's like 5-6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And you can see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are on the bench laughing with each other, having a good old time, a conversation. I'm like, you're in your house in a game that I felt like Miami had to win. This was a prove-it game for the Dolphins. And they're getting shellacked. They're getting smacked in front of their home crowd. What was left with it anyway, because a lot of people filed out of that stadium. But these guys are dicking around, laughing, joking around. And I'm thinking in my mind, if Buffalo was getting their asses handed to them by Miami, you go on their sideline, their bench, I promise you, Josh Allen's not joking around. When Stephon Diggs was here, he wasn't playing no games. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Bernard, Milano, name the guy, Ed Oliver, it doesn't matter. My point is this, dude. They're not on the sidelines making jokes because they just got blown out. Now, to be fair, the Bills have not been blown out in 43 games, an NFL record. They haven't lost by more than a score. You get my point, though. Just the body language on and the sidelines, the difference between these teams, the sense of urgency between these teams is incredible. And I keep going back to, it starts with the head coach. I attribute that to Sean McDermott. That's where I think he excels so much more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it trickles down. What you get from the head coach trickles down to those players. And I think what was so good and what we're still seeing, and there's still, it's a small sample size. It's only 2 games, but with all the veterans that went out the door, it was very interesting to see, hey, who are these new, core pieces that are going to step up that continue what was left behind by the Poyers, the Hydes, the Mitch Morris, and so on and so forth. And it seems like that has continued. And again, 2 games in, small sample size, but it just seems like what we see on their sidelines is different than what you might see on the Miami Dolphins sidelines, where you're still not getting, it's 31-10 and you're still seeing players standing, cheering for these players that are coming in, the Mitchell Trubisky's who come in the last, just kneeling at the end there, but the Ty Johnson, the big catch for 33 yards there, everybody's on the sidelines whooping and cheering for that one. It resonates with the head coach. And that's one of the big positives that you get with the Sean McDermott that you might not get with a different head coach is that, team first mentality. There's not just one guy that's going to stand up far and above the best, even with it being Josh Allen, one of the stars of the league. So I think it does resonate with the head coach and it trickles down to the players. And it's all about, it's the main mantra this year is everybody eats. And you're kind of seeing that. And it's in 2 games through, we're seeing small sample sizes of what I think they want to be.
I'm not saying this as a Bills homer. I'm being honest and objective. I feel like I am anyway when I say this. If I am a Miami Dolphin fan right now, I am extremely demoralized. The manner in which they lost in their stadium, every factor, not every factor, but a lot of factors in their favor. Home field, short week. Josh Allen was not a threat to run the football because he was not going to take shots to his hand. There was going to be no tush push on this night. The injury, no Taron Johnson going into the game. You're at home and just the urgency it feels like you need to have this game more than they do. And they just went out and laid a complete stinker. And I put that on the head coach. They just simply did not look ready to play football. By the way, a fun fact for Sean McDermott. I don't know if you knew this. His record's so 75-41. He has a 647 win percentage. Here's a fun fact. As things stand today, Sean McDermott has the exact same career win percentage as Bill Belichick. Same exact. And he's actually 0.1, because Kansas City won today, 0.1 percentage higher than Andy Reid. So the Bills have done plenty of winning. And he's also had a top going into this year because there's only 2 games in, but he's had a top 5 defense in 4 of his past 5 years. Let me ask you this. I believe this. Maybe you don't. Maybe an article doesn't have the power that I think it does. I go back to last year. The Bills are 6-6. Tyler Dunn writes a scathing series on Sean McDermott. I call it scathing. That said, I think much of it, and we've discussed this, we're not going to talk about the article again, but I thought a lot of it was warranted and deserved. Some people will say, well, it got a little too personal from Tyler, and those are fair points. But at the end of the day, a lot what was written, I believe, was accurate at the time. Anyway, since that article, they ran off 5 straight games to win the season. They won a playoff game, then they lose a game they probably should have won to Kansas City, and now they're 2-0 this year. I kind of feel like that article, that series by Tyler was an unofficial ultimate bulletin board for them rally cry. And I think maybe on some levels that article might have changed Sean McDermott. Tyler was on the podcast a couple of months ago and he talked about Sean actually requested to get together with Tyler and sit down and have a conversation so we can kind of let him know where he was at with stuff. They did this at the combine. A lot of respect to Sean for doing that with Tyler. He didn't have to do that. But anyway, do you kind of agree, or do you think maybe I'm reading too much into just an article? Because I feel like on some levels it changed Sean McDermott, and it changed maybe the way a lot of these players felt about Sean McDermott as well.
Yeah, I mean, without being in the locker room and knowing all the behind the scenes, you're kind of just looking at it as an outsider's perspective. But I was on the show last year when this kind of came out as well. Mm-hmm. We said that this could have been Bill. If they went on and won the Super Bowl because of this article, we said that they should have put a statue out for Tyler Dunn in front of the stadium. Like that was part of it. And I think that, hey, if Sean McDermott reaching out to Tyler Dunn to talk about that, it shows that, hey, some of the stuff that was in there could have been fully accurate. And I'm not denying anything that Tyler Dunn put in there, but it could have been just a self-reflection of Sean McDermott, just seeing what's on paper and saying, hey, okay, I got to look inward and change a bit and see what is there. So at least it got to him and go like, okay, I have to look inward and see, okay, what exactly is in this article? What exactly do I have to adjust? Where can I be better myself? And hearing all the stuff about Sean McDermott from the get-go about how detail oriented he is and how he wants to prepare for every single situation. That could have helped him become a better head coach, seeing, okay, this is one person's perspective. How can I improve in those areas? So 100%, like, this could have been something that's bulletin board material on a head coach that the team's already willing to run through a wall for. You see one negative thing about your head coach and going, hey, you can't say that about my head coach here, my brother, my father figure here. I'm going to even use this as more bulletin board material. And again, even though it might have been a lot of negative stuff in there, it could have resulted in a lot of positive stuff moving forward if he did change a lot of the negatives that were based around that article.
Yeah, for sure, man. Look, I said it kind of half joking. I wasn't joking, but the Bills have went 43 games now where they have not lost by more than 6 points. 43 straight games in a league where it is just so easy to come out flat and to have simply a bad day. Things don't go your way, a couple things, and you pack it in. You're like, you live to fight another day. The fact that nobody has blown the Bills out in the regular season, I should say, by the way, because they did have the Bengals playoff game where they sucked and got beat up, which is kind of like the Sean McDermott problem, because that's like the biggest game of the year. But to go 43 games and not get blown out once during that span in the regular season tells you that Sean McDermott has his team ready to play every week. Whatever the strength of the opponent is on some levels, he figures out a way to contain it, or he finds a weakness in the opponent and he finds a way to exploit it. The way he's handled Miami and that explosive offense, and the way the Bills have played against Tua, and the way they shut down, or I don't say shut down, but they certainly contain Tyreek Hill, which they did an incredible job of on Thursday as well. It just speaks to me above all else, if nothing else, how prepared the Bills are each and every week. And again, that goes back to the head coach and maybe, making Bobby Babich not just defensive coordinator, but letting him do play calls and kind of being that CEO of the team again, the manager of everything. Certainly seems to be working out. But that's my last point about McDermott, PK, is this team just comes prepared every week. When you go 43 games without having one slip up where you mess around and get blown out, it says a lot to me about being ready to play each week and the head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I've never complained that he's been a bad head coach. He's always been a very well prepared and a very solid coach. I think he would be at the top of a lot of teams' list, and I think a lot of teams would fire their head coaches now to get a guy like Sean McDermott. My problem has just always been what happens in the big games, and does he come up short? And time again, he has come up just a tad too short. But regular season, there's not too many other head coaches I would take above him. When it comes to a regular season, you got to get prepared and you got to win this game. I would have Sean McDermott in the top 5 of regular season. Absolutely.
But you know what? You're right, because the playoffs have been another story. They're 5-6 in the playoffs under Sean. And you look at the 3 losses, you go back to last year. Tell you what, though, I still, 6 months, 9 months later, whatever it is, I still don't hate the fake punt call. I hate that it didn't work. The execution was terrible. But if that works, that's Dan Campbell level, crazy ingenious, whatever. But they were not ready to play against the Bengals 2 years ago, flat out. A lot of factors, though, just a lot of fatigue, mental fatigue, injury fatigue, stuff like that. So I get that. And 13 seconds is just unforgivable. So if Sean McDermott would have gotten fired the week after 13 seconds, I would not have thought that was a bad decision at the time, just because that team's probably winning the Super Bowl, at least getting there, if that doesn't happen. But yeah, man, playoffs, you got to be better. If you want to be amongst the Andy Reids and the Bill Belichick's, and you want to be mentioned with those coaches, you got to have more success in the playoffs. And maybe this will be the year the Bills do. I kind of want to turn our attention for a few here to the offense. None feel like they're really good so far, because there's just nothing too flashy going on, so to speak, at least throwing the ball anyway. But 2 games in, very small sample size. It has been good. Basically, for a full half on Thursday, they were protecting a 3-score lead. So they were just running the ball in between the tackles, no fancy stuff. They were in just don't blow the game mode. Don't give Miami a gift turnover to allow them back in. So that even with that, though, this is a different offense now. 2 games in, they've run the ball 59 times in 2 games. That's almost 30 carries a game, 4.0 yards per carry, pretty good. And the other thing is James Cook, and I want to get your thoughts on him. A much bigger bell cow than I expected. Going into this season, I was like, I think Ray Davis can end up in a platoon type situation. Who knows? Maybe down the road he does. But right now, James Cook's bringing it, man. He's 30 carries already in 2 games, $149, 2 touchdowns. He's on pace for 1,266 yards, which would beat last year, where he was 4th in the NFL. But he's got 30 carries in 2 games. Ray Davis, 12. Ty Johnson, just 3. Talk about James Cook. Talk about what you're seeing from this offense right now.
Yeah, I think I kind of hinted at it earlier. This offense kind of looks like what they want it to be. I just don't think they've needed it to be at that level yet. I mean, especially in the Thursday night game, James Cook just kind of took over and was just like, hey, I'm going to shut the door on this long run here. And I'm playing against him in fantasy. So that was a bittersweet moment for me to see him break off that long run where it hurt there, but it was great in this game. But, he took this one over and kind of shut this down. And then the defense did a great job the entire game. I was really impressed, especially with Balin Spector, but we're talking about the offense. James Cook, like going into this season, I was agreeing with you where I was like, hey, Ray Davis has a little bit of juice here. This could end up being middle of the season, a competition, a 50-50 split here. James Cook must have heard all those words and just going, hey, this is my job. I'm taking over. And, 11 for 78 and 2 touchdowns. It's filthy. And then the play call, his speed around at the end to get inside the end zone there on the 4th and 3rd, that he's got more juice than I thought he did. And I think he's got more speed and more vision. And I think it was more game 1 versus Arizona. The patience he has to let his blockers set up as well. I think that's a little bit more of a twist than we saw last year as well, where he's just more patient. I saw a little bit of like primetime Lev Bell back there where he's kind of just standing in place, waiting for those blocks to set up, waiting for that opening and just burst through it. I've really, really liked his game. And now we haven't seen it fully in the receiving game just yet because he still had a lot of drops in training camp and preseason. But if that can continue and get better and better, that was the only thing really for me holding him back as that true bell cow in the back is his inability to make those catches. If that fully comes along, he's got the keys to the RB room.
You son of a bitch. You got to my Le'Veon Bell take quicker than I did because, man, that is a great comparison. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it this season. Lev Bell vibes, so to speak. He looks patient, like you said, but when he hits the hole, he is getting decisive when he does it. And there was one play during the game when I watched the film. It wasn't one of his big plays, and he had a couple of them. It was a simple 2.5-yard run, but he took the ball to the left side, and there was not much there. Like, he was in between the guard and tackle. He was in between Edwards and Deion Dawkins. And last year, or even 2 years ago, I expect him to bust that out to the outside and get tackled for a 3-yard loss. But he quickly and seamlessly shifted a gear, got inside of Edwards, and instead of potentially trying to get outside and lose yards where I think he would have because there was someone waiting there for him, he ended up getting about 2.5, 3 yards. And I'm like, that's not the James Cook that I've seen previously. And if he's not going to drop the football, if he's not going to make those type of mistakes, he could potentially end up being one of the better running backs in this whole league. Ralph Wilson Sr.'s hope Cook keeps up the intensity he had in front of his hometown on Thursday. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure he had some extra juice being in the state of Florida, playing in his hometown as well. But yeah, dude, you said it, man. Lev Bell vibes. That's what I'm seeing from James Cook right now, which has kind of allowed the Bills, and I think much to Sean McDermott's delight too, is be kind of a little more pedestrian with this passing game. Josh Allen has thrown 42 passes in 2 games, 371 yards. Not that impressive. 3 touchdowns, no picks. That is very impressive. 124.2 quarterback rating so far. He's been sacked just twice, and all of his metrics and all the Bills' offense looks pretty solid. Like, the metrics actually look good. It doesn't feel that way because they're not chucking the ball all over the place. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, pretty balanced, run-heavy offense. This is their identity now. Robert Mays from The Athletic said it. This is their offensive line. They're punishing you. This is a new Buffalo Bills offense. You agree? Do you feel like this isn't just some anomaly early in the season and they're going to revert back to what we've seen? Like, this kind of feels like this is what they want their offense to be every week.
Yeah, especially this year because I don't think they have that 1A wide receiver. So I don't think you're going to see what you saw last year with Stephon Diggs because you kind of saw it when Joe Brady took over. You're kind of wondering last year, and we're kind of getting more assurances this year is this the type of offense Joe Brady and Sean McDermott want to run, or are they just running it because of the pieces that are currently there? And I think, all the moves they made in the offseason, bringing in, switching over the entire wide receiver room. And I think with all the comments that we were saying, hey, we have to take some of this work off of Josh Allen. We need help around Josh Allen and take some of that responsibility off of him. This James Cook role and the way that he's running in the offensive line, how good they have been. I thought this offensive line has looked really good through 2 games. Yes, there's still some wrinkles to work out, but I think they've been very, very solid. I think opening up those gaps, I do fully believe this is the type of offense you're going to be getting where there's now 1A guy. I do think Dalton Kincaid's going to continue to come along, and I think he's going to make a bigger name because he's been far too quiet. We saw how they were forcing him the ball early in the Miami game, and then they kind of went away from it because they didn't need to do that because of the running game and James Cook was taking over. But I do think as the season progresses, you're going to need a Dalton Kincaid to step up. You're going to need a Keon Coleman to step up, who I really liked his game 1 as well. You're going to need a Curtis Samuel, who's completely been irrelevant these first 2 games, to step up. But I do agree. I think this is the type of offense they want to be more like 60-40 than the 70-30, 80-20 that they've been in the past. And so far, so good that this type of mindset of everybody eats and the run game is, the main piece is working so far. And, it might not be the flashiest and most fun to watch that we've seen in past, like the Brian Daboll year where you had all the star-studded wide receivers. But if you're winning and getting the job done, I don't care what it looks like.
Yeah, for sure, man. As we go to a break here, the only nugget I really got in so far in the passing game through two games anyway, that I kind of feel like is going to really start to take over more and more is I think Khalil Shakir is becoming that go-to guy. 8 catches for 96 yards. Those, again, not mind-blowing stats by any means, but when they need a play in the passing game, it seems like it's him. And 5 of his 8 catches have went for first downs. And every time he's been targeted, he catches the ball. That's the thing, man. Khalil Shakir don't drop shit. He's dependable, and he gets open, and he can make something happen after the play as well. I think as the weeks go on and the Bills, at some point, are going to have to open up the passing game more and more. I really feel like you're going to get a bigger emergence coming from Khalil Shakir. I did the post-game show with Joe from Queens on Thursday, right after the game, and he asked me in real time here, what was something from the game, not counting Terrell Bernard getting hurt or not counting Tyler Bass completely shaking a field goal. Find something you didn't like about the game for the Bills' perspective. And I was really challenged. It was tough. And again, I watched the All-22 film, and I did come up with one thing. I want to take a quick break. I'm going to hit on that, get your take on that. Then I want to kind of talk a little bit about the league on Sunday and a few minutes of Sabres talk too as well. So we'll be back on the video side like in 3 seconds. Okay, I am back with PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective. We are talking Buffalo Bills. All right, so Thursday again on the post-game show, I could not think of one thing about this game that I did not like from a Bills perspective other than Bernard getting hurt and Tyler Bass missing a field goal. Went back, watched the All-22. I want to preface this by saying relax. I'm not saying the dude sucks or that he's going to suck or that he's a bust or any of that shit, but I will tell you this specific game against Miami, Keon Coleman was not good. I went and watched the film. Box score speaks for itself of only 1 target, no catches. From what I saw on film with the route running, by the way, for a second straight week. So for some people, including myself, we thought maybe he might start out slow and not play that much. That completely has not been the case. Both weeks, he's led all Bills receivers in snaps. He played like 91% of the snaps on Thursday night in Miami. I didn't see really him open a lot. It's, sometimes plays just don't work out. Like I saw Dalton Kincaid in some routes. He could have had a couple more catches if Josh looks at him, including that but that long pass play to Ty Johnson. Josh obviously made the right decision and the right throw, but Dalton Kincaid had a defensive lineman on him wide open, and that would have been a third down conversion as well. But anyway, my point was not seeing Keon Coleman really getting any separation and getting open at all. And I was watching every single route that he ran. Also, not impressed with the job he did in this game blocking. And I think he had a pretty shitty, I don't have it in front of me, but I know his BFF grade, not that that means all that much anyway. Take that with a grain of salt, but not a great game blocking either. Not concerned about him. They didn't need him on Thursday, but man, you're going to be playing the Ravens, the Texans, the Jets, the Niners, Detroit. A lot of these teams, you're probably going to need something from Keon Coleman. You saw some good signs against Arizona in week 1. This specific game was a step back. And again, I'm being a little bit nitpicky here in a Bills blowout win, but I was tasked with finding something other than Bass or Bernard, and that's what I came up with.
Yeah, I do agree on Keon Coleman. I think these are the type of performances you're going to get. You're going to have a good week, and then you're going to have a week where the defense just kind of shuts them down. And I think that's what was one of the worries going into this season is he makes a ton of contested catches, but he doesn't really get truly open a lot. He needs to work on that part of his game. And going against Arizona, where I thought he performed really, really well. He had that great catch down the sidelines. That's the prototypical Keon Coleman type of catch that you're expecting. But I thought he was getting open more in Arizona. And that's kind of expected because the Arizona defense going into the season is kind of real shaky. They don't have a ton of good playmakers back there. But I think Budda Baker is pretty much the only recognizable name on Arizona. This one, Jalen Ramsey's out there. You got a couple other big name players on Miami's defense. And yes, you put up 31 against them, but this is the type of game that I'm kind of expecting Keon Coleman to have a few of this season, especially being a rookie. And he had some question marks going into this one. But I think for me, it still goes back to the player that I keep forgetting they signed in the offseason. And I've mentioned it multiple times on here. The pretty much invisibility of Curtis Samuel. And again, they haven't truly really needed his game yet. They're going to need him at some point. I was expecting more of his plays in the backfield so far this season. I was expecting a lot of motion, and you see him running across the field in pre-snap motion, but he's not really truly getting involved. I'm a little bit let down on his involvement through 2 games. He's got three catches, 4 targets, 18 yards. Again, he hasn't really been needed yet. But I'm a little shocked at his involvement so far this season. And, 1 catch for 3 yards on Thursday night's game. It's a little, I'm not concerned either, but it's one thing that stood out to me is him not being as involved for a guy that they spent 3 years, $33 million or some amount on him, and being a very early free agent signing. That to me, I thought would be an indication that they would use him more than they have 2 games in.
Yeah, and you wonder a little bit if maybe the turf toe has a little bit something to do with it. How it's done 123 is in the live video portion of this with a comment. He says, we had Gabe for that. We were talking about Keon Coleman. I'll tell you what, in all seriousness, if Keon Coleman is Gabe Davis, I'll take it. 2nd round pick. Give me a guy who's going to score 4 touchdowns in a playoff game or whatever. He'll disappear for a month and then he'll have 3 catches for $147. Honestly, I would take that. To your point about Samuel and Keon and Shakir and Kincaid, I'll say this. You're right. The Bills are going to need them at some point, but maybe not as much as we think, because if this team keeps playing defense and if they're running the ball and Josh Allen using his legs, he didn't in Miami, which again, he was not going to take a hit in this game. That's why he's getting rid of the ball so damn quick as well. Look, They might not. They might not need these guys as much as we think that they're going to. Real quick, too. Saturday, I did a weekend show, and I kind of broke down a couple plays. I just want to throw this out there because, again, I love watching film and talking about, like, the unsung heroes of plays. Like Ingram's pick 6. Just want to give some flowers to A.J. Epinesa. He lined up in the left defensive tackle spot, did a stunt outside, and forced that throw. Props to him. On the James Cook 49-yard touchdown run, they triple-teamed the defensive end, and then the center, Connor McGovern, had a great one-on-one block that really sprung him. David Long Jr., by the way, Josh Allen looking at his jersey, who are you? That was the best. But anyway, he hit the wrong gap. Bam, James Cook gone. Touchdown, outran our boy. Jordan Poyer. And then on the Ty Johnson play, which, by the way, beat Jalen Ramsey on that. Spencer Brown made a good block and let Josh Allen get outside to make that play. So I wanted to throw that out there as well. One last thing from this game. It's got nothing to do with the Bills. And quite frankly, it doesn't really got a lot to do with football so much. But Tua, obviously, another concussion. It was scary seeing his face in real time. Did not look right walking off the field. I'm not going to keep beating this dead horse. I still don't understand how Miami to bring a card out for him, made the poor guy walk all the way to his locker room. I've been in Hard Rock Stadium on that field. My son played on that field in the high school all-star game. It is a long walk from that field to the Miami locker room. I promise you that. Anyway, should he retire? He said he's not going to retire. He's already seen concussion specialists. It's tough because you don't want to tell a person how to live their life, but this shit's getting into dangerous territory for me. Like, if you were close to him, would you advise him to retire? Would you say, do what your heart tells you? Would you try to talk him into retiring? If it was your family, what would your advice be to him? And then it's the second part of a question here. I feel like, or maybe not a question, but a statement. I feel like he's one more concussion away from, for the first time, the NFL stepping in and saying, we're just not going to let you play anymore. We're going to make this decision for you. I feel like if he has another concussion where he looks like that again, whether he wants to play or not, I think his career is going to involuntarily be over, mandated by the league. But anyway, quickly here, if you're to his family, if this is someone you love, are you advising him to retire? What would you do?
Yeah, I've been asked, for my opinion and my advice on a lot of things in life from people. And I've learned that no matter what you tell them, they're still going to end up making their own decision. Sure. So you have to go in not expecting them to take your advice, but to at least listen to it. So if I'm his family, like as somebody who's had 5 concussions in my life before, and I'm not anywhere close to an NFL field, I'm telling him, hey, like, you're 26 years old. You already made enough money to set you, your family, your children's family up for life. Like, is it worth it to continue to keep playing and risk permanent or further permanent damage than you might have already have continuing to play this game? And I completely understand you've worked your entire life to get to this point, and to have it possibly snatched away from you on some freak plays where your head hits the turf or you go into DeMar Hamlin's chest or any of those type of things. It sucks. And I understand as a player, you want to keep playing because you feel at that point, hey, I've worked my entire life. I'm not having this snatched from you. But I'm telling him, like, dude, you got a family, you got kids. Like, do you want to see your kids continue to grow up and play football in the backyard with them, play catch in the backyard, like do whatever you want to do? Like, you're going to make your own decision. But as somebody who loves you and looking from the best interest of you, dude, it might be time to just think about something other than football. And is it truly worth continuing to play, continuing to put yourself in that risk when your family's set? Like, I understand your dreams might be cut short here, but you made a name for yourself in the league. There's people around here that see your worth. You already accomplished as much as you have already. It might be time to think about like your life and your family outside of football rather than just now. But again, he's going to make his own decision. That's what I've learned. Players.
Well, he's going to play.
Exactly.
If he gets cleared, he's already made that decision. He's playing. If it's a matter of when and if he eventually gets cleared.
Right.
Look, I like, and this is not me, I'm not patronizing him. I genuinely, seriously felt bad for him seeing it happen. I like him. He seems like a great person. He says, it actually annoys me. I don't think he's a great leader. I don't know if I'd want this quarterback on my football team because I don't know that I want my leader to be as super nice as he is. I know that sounds stupid, but I want a fiery guy as my captain, my guy. But from a human aspect, I like him. He's a good person. He says the right things. You could tell he's got a kind heart. And it's easy, as much as I hate, the team he plays for, it's easier to root in life for people like that. So I genuinely hope that first and foremost, he gets fully healthy. And that if he does get cleared and he plays again, that this doesn't happen again. Again, I want the Bills to be Miami senseless every time they play him. I don't want it to come at the expense of a human being, having his brain scrambled anymore. So I hope if he plays again and he's able to, I hope we don't ever see something like this again. Real quick here, AFC East. All right, so Miami's 1-1. They looked awful against Buffalo in their own house, and Skylar Thompson's their quarterback now. That could be for a while too. They might be in a lot of trouble, and we're only in week 3 right now for the season. Miami might be in a lot of trouble. The Jets won on Sunday. They beat Tennessee by a touchdown. Will Levis, terrible. His stats looked all right. He had one of those inexplicable turnovers, but besides that, he's got a good arm, makes some plays with his legs, man. Just dude ain't got no awareness right now. He might become good, but he's got a long way to go. Anyway, the Jets win that game. Jets are 1-1, and the Patriots lose in overtime to Seattle. They beat Cincinnati last week. They're 1-1. Do you feel like right now, and again, it's so early, small sample sizes, but at the end of the day, does it feel like for the time being, at least the Bills are in the driver's seat with this division yet again?
Oh, 100%. I'm not very afraid of the Jets offense. It seems like it's get the ball to Wilson, get the ball to Hall, and hope they can do the best they can. Aaron Rodgers, he's looked better than I thought he would, but he still hasn't looked very good whatsoever. Like, sure. I think he's playing better than I thought he could, but my bar for him was very low as a 40-year-old quarterback coming off and the type of injury he did. Miami, they didn't look good when Tua was their quarterback in that game. Like whatever Buffalo does to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it just confuses the heck out of them. So again, I'm still not, until Miami proves me differently, I'm not afraid of the Buffalo Bills playing Miami. New England is just going to be a pain in the butt. Like I'm not afraid of their offense, but they're just like that little fly that's good. It's just always going to be like driving home from Toronto. There was a fly that was landing on my leg constantly driving home. That's what it feels like New England's going to be, because they have I think Mayo is a solid coach. I just don't think they have the pieces for it. But I think they're going to be in the games with Buffalo just enough to be that annoying little stepbrother. I think that's what the division's going to be. But, looking at it, I feel a lot better about the Buffalo Bills' chances of taking this division for another year than I did before the season started.
Shout out to regular YouTube watcher of the show. Colleen says hello to us. Hello to you as well. Hello to almost 600 people right now that are actually watching this live on the video side here on a late Sunday night. Look, I agree with you. When it comes to I think Miami's, I don't want to say they're cooked completely, but they're close to being cooked. I think New England's going to be competitive, but I'm not going to take them as any kind of serious threat to the division. The Jets, I'll say two things about the Jets. Aaron Rodgers has been okay so far, but he's not going to be at any point. He's not going to be better than he was at 40 years old before the Achilles injury. So I don't know what you're going to get with him, and see what happens when he gets more pressure. And also with the Jets, Jermaine Johnson, their first-round draft pick from 2022, tore his Achilles. He's probably done for the season today. That's one of their better pass rushers right now. This might be an interesting week. Do they cave? And is Hassan Reddick going to get his money? Because now you're down Jermaine Johnson. That's a big blow to their pass rush. If you're not familiar with the Jets, I would say that would be the equivalent, at a minimum, of if the Bills were to lose AJ Epinesa for the season. That would be like my comparison. He had 7.5 sacks last year for the Jets. So that's going to be interesting to monitor. Also, quickly around the league, because I want to wrap up with a couple of minutes of Sabres talk, actually. Kansas City beat Cincinnati. Look, I know people, on Bills fans go nuts on Twitter. The refs cheat for the refs cheat for Kansas City, this and that. Memes of referees having Kansas City Chiefs colors on, stuff like that. I'll say this, they do get benefited by so many calls, but this pass interference call near the end of the game, I think, was the right call. The defender got there early. I think it was the right call. Mahomes had an interception earlier, wiped out by a penalty. I saw a stat. Joe DiBiase put this up on WGR. He said he had like 17 interceptions in his career, wiped out by a defensive penalty, which is the most in the NFL since he joined. So, whatever. Bottom line is this, though. Kansas City's 2-0, and I know a lot of people were like so anti. I'm okay with the Chiefs winning because I'm never afraid to play the Chiefs as good as they are. Cincinnati's 0-2. To me, that's big because they're the team that seems to dominate the Bills. They're the team that grinds up on the Bills and just kind of beats their brains in on a lot of levels, actually. So Cincinnati's already lost to New England at home, and now they go and they lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. A great game, by the way. Butker makes a 51-yard field goal at the buzzer, because of course he does. He's such a clutch kicker. But I kind of like the fact that Cincinnati's 0-2. Like, that game didn't actually piss me off at the end.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Cincinnati and Baltimore, both 0-2 before they start having to face the AFC North, which all those games are absolute bloodbaths, is great. You're looking at the Colts, Titans, and Jaguars all sitting in 0-2. You got the Chargers 2-0 and the Steelers are 2-0. I get it's 2 weeks in, but what the heck is going on in the AFC
Baltimore's
so far?
0-2. Baltimore's 0-2. They lost at home to the Raiders. Today, I watched a lot of that game too. Baltimore does not impress me. I mean, they got some studs on defense, no question about it, but I don't think their offense is very good. Their offensive line is in shambles. Max Crosby and that Raiders Wilkins, that defensive line was living in the Baltimore backfield. But yes, since he's 0-2, Baltimore's 0-2. The Chargers are undefeated right now, and Pittsburgh's undefeated. Who would have known? Wild day on Sunday. Dallas loses at home. Detroit loses at home. San Francisco goes on the road. They lose to the Vikings. Pretty wild day. One other thing, too, got a kick out of this. Arizona, they beat the shit out of the Rams today. Marvin Harrison, who the Bills held to 1 catch for 4 yards. He had 4 catches for $130 and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter of that game. Didn't do anything else literally for the rest of the game, but still 4 for $130 and 2 touchdowns. Tell you, watching that game, the way they beat the shit out of the Rams, I feel like it makes the Bills' week 1 win look a little more impressive to me right now. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. It makes Bobby Babbage look better. It makes Sean McDermott look better. And it definitely makes the corners in Benford and Rasul Douglas look a heck of a lot better for shutting down a guy who his first 2 catches of that game go for touchdowns. It's the NFL, man. It's any given day.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get out of here, let me apologize if you're kind of new to this show. All right. So since training camp, basically in July, this has become almost exclusively a Buffalo Bills talk podcast. But at its core, and I got to say this for newer people, Talking Buffalo is not just a Bills podcast. Okay. We talk other Sabres, we talk Sabres, other sports bandits from time to time. At least if I got PK on, I might sneak a question or 2 in. We talk about all kinds of stuff that's going on. All right. It's a conversational show. You might not know this if you're new because it's all Bills talk. I'm saying this because we're going to end this with a couple minutes of actual Buffalo Sabres talk. So if you're a Bills fan and a Bills fan only and you're bouncing, I hope you don't. I do understand them, but I want to let you know, because going forward, offseason's over for hockey. Starting this week again on Thursday, the Veterans Report. Training camp starts, so hockey's back, so you could expect many more, not many, but at least some hockey-centric episodes of Talking Buffalo going forward. Let me ask you this, PK. What's your level of excitement right now with training camp starting, and like as camp starts and into the preseason, which, by the way, the regular season is less than a month away now. What are you most excited to see? Like, what do you hope? What do you want to see how it plays out the most? Like, what's got you going right now when it comes to the Sabres, if anything, in training camp?
I tell myself every offseason, don't get bought into everything that's going on. And then I went to the prospects game on Friday and I saw Yuri Kulik and I saw, some of these younger studs playing against a team that has pretty much all undrafted camp invitees. And Kulik should not have been playing in that game because he schooled everybody. And the one move he made to score, I think it was his second goal, was filthy. I'm excited again. They got me hooked again. I hate to admit it, but I'm hooked again. I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about is what Lindy Ruff does to this young group, because I don't think it is, as much as they've loved their previous head coach, I don't think this core group has played for a head coach like Lindy Ruff. And I think he's going to run them crazy this training camp, rightfully so, for a team that has not made the playoffs in decade plus. I think this is a team that I'm excited to see come out and play the Lindy Ruff style of hockey, because if they can do that, I think there's enough talent on this team to make playoffs. And yes, sounds like a complete homer take, which it's not meant to be, but Sabres were my first love. by far, I am a diehard Buffalo Sabres guy. And this last few years has absolutely sucks. So me having to buy back in hurts my soul because I've been sick of this team. But Lindy Ruff taking over and kind of changing the mindset of practices, changing the mindset of how they play. I'm most interested to see how these first 5 games of the regular season go, to see if that culture change really has taken effect. Because if it hasn't shown in the first 5 to 10 games, I'm probably going to be looking to cash my receipt back out, because I don't know if anything's going to change unless I see it in the first 5 to 10. It might just be the same thing on repeat.
I'll say this: I think the pressure is going to be incredibly amped up. I think you have a general manager who is GMing for his job. If they miss the playoffs again, I don't know how Kevin Adams survives. And if nothing else with Terry Pegula, we can get mad about him not talking to the media ever and things like that, but he's not afraid to make changes and eat money. We saw it literally just happen with Don Granato. Quickly, there's 3 things specifically that I'm interested in seeing how camp in the preseason unfold. I'm interested in seeing who gets that second line forward spot. I mean, I think Paterka, Tage Thompson, and Tuck, that's your first line for sure. Cousins and Quinn are going to be on that second line. Is it going to be Jason Zucker, the new guy, or is it going to be Zach Benson? Which one's going to be on the second line? Which one's going to be on the third line? That's something I'm interested in tracking in terms of the bottom 6 forwards. Like, who might be the odd guy out if Yuri Kulik makes this football team. My mind's still on the Bills. If he makes this hockey team, who's going to be that guy? Ryan McLeod's that third line center. That much you got set in stone. But you got Greenway, you got Krebs, you got some of the new guys, Malenstein and Sam Lafferty, Ob Koble, good fourth line guys. Somebody is going to have to be out, especially if Kulik makes this team. Now you're talking 13 forwards. How does that play out? I'm interested in that. And then the last thing is, what kind of camp in preseason is Devin Levi going to have? I don't know for sure that he's that lock that everyone thinks he is. Everyone's just assuming it's going to be UPL and Devin Levi between the pipes. James Reamer's with this organization right now, literally an old veteran. They could decide, hey, I want another year or at least a half a season or so of Devin going down to Rochester and playing every night. So that is on the table. It's not a guarantee. Ideally, you'd love to say, all right, give UPL 60 games or 55 to 60 games and give Levi 25, 30 games or something like that and, kind of divvy it up that way. But he could still end up in Rochester. I don't think it's a lock that he's making this team.
Yeah, I think their perfect world is UPL carries over what happened last year, so they can send Levi down to Rochester. And if you have a West Coast trip, you bring Levi with it to play the back-to-backs. You play him in those back-to-backs. You call him up, and Reimer's kind of like your emergency backup in case UPL or Levi goes down. So I think that's their dream scenario where they can kind of use that, up and down method for Levi, where he gets consistent games down in Rochester. But if there's the back-to-back and you're not playing UPL back-to-back, Levi comes in and is that goalie. But to mention Krebs, he's still an RFA. He still has not signed that deal.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure Kevin Adams said, keep an eye out for the next 48 hours. I don't know if that means they have a contract worked out. I don't know if that means they have a deal worked out or something brewing, but it is something of note that it is this late into September and he still doesn't have that deal. He's still that last remaining RFA. So that's also something to keep an eye on as this week progresses.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, and by the way, I want to thank today's sponsor, Imperial Pizza. 2 locations, 1035 Abbott Road and also 1665 Main Street. One of the best places you're going to go for pizza and wings anywhere, literally in Western New York. I want to set up the rest of the week here on the show for people who have stuck around to the end. Tomorrow's show, I'm going to be doing a pod bag. That's going to be your questions, your comments, your takes. I will feature them on the show, read them off, and have some responses. Wednesday's show, we're going to have Matt Moran from SB Nation. We'll talk Bills and the NFL. Thursday's show is going to be a Buffalo Sabres training camp preview. I'm going to have Mike Harrington from the Buffalo News. And then Friday, we will have a Bills-centric / Jacksonville Monday night preview. I'll have my man Anthony Marino on. He'll be with me as well. One last comment. Ralph Wilson Sr. says, knowing Ruff, everybody will be on the first, second, third, and fourth line. Not quite sure what that means, but Yeah, sure. I think he's saying that we don't know what the hell is going to happen. What I do know is I want to thank my guy, PK, from the Buffalo Sports Collective for joining me tonight. And again, if you have not checked out Buffalo Sports Collective, make sure you do, especially if you are a Bandits fan. You can follow PK on Twitter at PK_BSC. Always a pleasure having you on, my man.
No problem. I got to go figure out what happened in the NL draft that was going on.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. And I will be back again. A pod bag coming up tomorrow on Talking Buffalo.